All right, hello, and welcome back to the podcast Dialectica. I'm Matt.
And I'm Nick.
Tonight we're going to discuss the season finale of Game of Thrones, Season 7.
We sure are. So let's start it off. We just watched, and currently we got the whole thing going on the TV as well. And, Matt, what are your first impressions?
You know, to be honest, Nick, I'm torn on this one. There's a lot of things that have been, long-awaited confirmations or things that I've been curious about for a very long time. But at the same time, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of stuff I didn't like as well, and some things that are just really hard for someone who's just been reading the books as long as I have, and to just overlook. But that being said, the scenes, the sets, the acting, was really on point this episode. Like the wall coming down, yeah, it was pretty hard not to be amazed by that.
Rate
yeah,
out of 10, how high would you rate it? And then, how does it stack up to the other episodes this season?
If I had to give it a rating, I'd say about a 7.
And compared to the other episodes this season?
Compared to the others, I think it was it was on the better half of the episodes this season. But I wouldn't say that it was one of the better episodes, period, because there were just way too many glaring.
I don't think any of the episodes
mistakes.
This season
kind
of stack up to.
All right, so I guess first thing let's just kind of talk. First major thing was the dragon pit.
All right, now on screen at the moment, there's Dany's army incorrectly sieging a city. Now, if you don't know anything about siege, you actually surround the city. But apparently they're not sieging. They're just there for no particular reason.
It's a show of force. Dany, this is literally just a pissing contest.
Well, if you're going to show force, you better show off those 2 dragons as well. And burn some shit. And not have your men just dehydrating in a field. They should have some...
but the Unsullied will stand until they die.
Yeah, well, you're going to have, 8,000 dead or dehydrated men who can be attacked with catapults and crossbows. And kind of dumb. It's a little thing, but for a history guy like me, whatever.
But yeah, so I don't know. The first major scene was the dragon pit, and my first initial thought was, oh shit, there's a ton of blue shirts and yellow shirts in this. These are not red shirts that are meeting here.
Hold on. You just said 3 shirts. What are we talking about?
No, Star Trek, man. If you're wearing a blue shirt or a yellow shirt, you're not going to die. That's where the term red shirt comes from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
those are all the extras.
Yeah, like when Kirk and Spock and whatnot would go down on like the away missions.
Christ, you're a nerd.
They'd always take like these extra people just to die, like the Wildlings last episode.
Yeah,
they just died. They're red shirts. So, anyways, a lot of people in blue shirts, yellow shirts coming in to meet to this. You have Jaime, Brienne, the Hound. So. Naturally, you're going to have a pissing contest beforehand. So that's what the Dothraki and the Unsullied did.
Speaking of the Dothraki, there's a very important scene going on right now where the Dothraki charge through the lines of the Unsullied in this field, and they're going to... What are they going to do? Attack the wall of the city? What's the point of this scene? Is this just is it really just a show of force? Is it that dumb?
Well, it's like I said, the Dothraki...
You're in archer range. You don't put your cavalry in archer range without shields.
Well, they're at a summit. They're not going to kill. It's just, I guess it's pissing contest, show of force.
How did they know? You trust the Lannisters?
I wouldn't, but, The, well, so I don't know. I just,
I think I know. The theme of this episode was trust. Every single person trusted each other. Except for Cersei at the end.
That's a fair point. John talked about it,
A noble theme, but not a very realistic one. And I've always liked Game of Thrones because it is realistic. And, okay, the scene's just about to happen, and I could not stand this. Who in their right mind would put up all of your top men? So Tyrion and Davos and all these people... They have them completely surrounded in King's Landing by a bunch of guys. Like, they could have all been stabbed as soon as they went into the middle of
Right,
the
and
group.
what's to stop Cersei? I mean, this is a woman who blew up the Sept of Baelor with her family and family by marriage and by blood in it, and didn't give a shit. So, I mean, what the fuck is this? Is going to stop her from killing people she doesn't care about? I mean, the dragons maybe, but then again, like,
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. If all right, so you're Daenerys, and I'm Tyrion, and we're thinking, what do we do in this situation? It's pretty fucking clear, isn't it? You bring the dragons in. You put the city under siege. You bring the dragons in, and you burn down the Red Keep, where you threatened to.
oh, we've done that long ago.
And once Cersei's dead, she's not a very popular person. The people will appeal. You send in messages saying, surrender and we will spare you. Don't and we'll kill you.
Well,
It's just stand. Well, no, they're not the small
folk are
folk.
used to just doing whatever
They're gonna
people
riot
tell
no
them
matter
anyways.
what you
Yeah.
do. It's just standard. Like, that's just basic war. Who wouldn't do that? Who would be stupid enough to march into the enemy lines with all your generals? Here's Jon Missandei.
They got a
Jorah,
lot
they
of
got
people
all
with
the
dialogue.
A-list.
They got a lot of people with actual dialogue here.
They do.
Well, you got to think the showrunners just wanted to have this grand scene that had a good chunk
It
of
wasn't that grand,
the
though.
cast.
I guess it was okay.
I don't know. I really loved Euron. Euron has been my favorite
I like your
aspect of this season by far. He has stolen the show for me. He the guy that plays him, not only does he look like Theon and Yara, could be
Yeah.
his uncle, he has done a phenomenal job of. I'm gonna be honest. I want this guy to win.
Speaking of speaking of actors who look like each other, absolutely correct. Theon and Euron, those two actors, I thought they were the same person at first. Excellent casting. They didn't just pick some random dude from Britain like they usually do. It looks like they sought someone out who had the right facial characteristics and whatnot. Did Theon kill Victarion?
Oh,
Who's that supposed to be? It looks just like him.
the guy he fought on the beach. I mean, well, we're not getting Victarion. We're not getting the Iron Captain in the show. So if that's Victarion,
It's not
I'll
because
take
they
it,
would have
you know.
mentioned it.
yeah.
But
Well, we got the damp hair. We got Aaron.
yeah, he's not showing up.
He did. No, he did. In season 2, he baptized.
No,
Theon.
he's not showing up again.
Oh yeah, he's not showing up again.
He should have just been crucified on the outside of
The silence.
Boat. Yeah,
that'd be cool.
that'd been fun. But getting back to what's happening here, this was a fun scene. This might have been my favorite scene in the whole.
Between Brienne and the Hound.
Okay, so I like the Hound because he's this big, masculine force, right? And it's a kind of a classic trope where, he's big, he's tough, he's intimidating, sometimes his anger gets ahead of him. And, this is the sort of character that, the female, the feminine force will tame. It's kind of a standard trope.
But Brienne does it by
but not by Brienne, because Brienne's a fucking trope.
But Brienne does it in a different a different way.
So like, in like a general fairy tale, the Hound would have been tamed by Sansa or Arya or some feminine force or whatever. But
Right.
anyway, I like the fact that the Hound in this little scene, he respects Brienne. He says, "I wouldn't fight you."
As a warrior, he just respects her as a warrior, as a sword.
Yeah, I guess so. And I think maybe that's a little arc for him. First season, I'm not gonna fucking lose to a woman. That sort of shit. He wouldn't say that. Oh, he didn't say it, but he probably
You
would.
cunt.
Yeah, whatnot. But that's a little mini arc for him. He's learned to respect women.
Or at least women that can kick his ass.
Little baby steps. We're talking.
Well, I mean, in the book, I kind of subscribe to the thought that Sansa, telepathically had kind of
maybe
a sway over him.
The argument that I have against that is Sansa's wolf is dead, and maybe her telepathic link no longer exists.
Well, I think it manifested through the Hound.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah,
because the Hound versus a wolf. That's
right. Well, and then Robert says, "Get her a dog; she'll be happier for it."
Oh man, that's a good theory right there.
So, and George R. R. Martin has another. He was the executive producer and writer for Beauty and the Beast, and the Beast has a telepathic link to.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah. There's a TV show in like the 80s or something like that. And
the Beast has a telepathic link. Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt you.
Yeah, Beast has like a telepathic link to Beauty, and when she's in trouble, he can sense it and comes to save her.
Absolute, wonderful fairy tale, Beauty and the Beast. That's what I was kind of talking about earlier.
Oh, you mean the story of Stockholm Syndrome and how, the smart princess falls for her captor?
You can analyze it anyway, but it's kind of, I was saying it about a minute ago. This feminine power, and she's very, beauty.
Well, non-traditional by societal standards.
What do you?
Are you talking about Brienne or Sansa?
No. I'm talking about Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, okay. Right.
She's a traditional female power, right? This is something that women would strive to, and that especially in the Middle Ages and whatnot. And this is a feminine ideal versus a uncontrolled masculinity. And in the end of the story, the beauty tames the beast, and the beast protects the beauty. Classic.
But we go back to this whole benevolent feminism and chivalry in itself, and how even if it is benevolent, it's still sexist.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't need.
It's a reflection of human nature.
But you wouldn't need to protect women if you just taught women how to protect themselves, like you do men.
No fucking way, dude.
Absolutely.
Women. Okay. No woman is going to be, maybe a handful of women on steroids could be in a fight.
But we're not, no. I mean, in today's day and age of society, you don't need to fight. We're beyond that. I mean, when is the last time you personally been in a fight? I haven't personally been in a fight because I don't need to. We're beyond that.
Closest I got, there was a fun story. There was this gay guy who, wanted to see my package, and he grabbed it, and I felt violated. I really did. It's a weird story for a podcast, but I felt like, holy shit, I don't feel secure. So I picked the dude up by his neck and I brought him to the window and I said, "Look down, motherfucker. I'm going to throw you out this window if you ever do that again."
See, but a lot of women have to deal with that on a day-to-day basis. Not just women, men. It's wrong, regardless of who it is.
Yes. But let's get back to Clegane Bowl, which is happening.
Clegane Bowl. I mean, this is going to be one of those things that are just going to
we'll do an episode on philosophy of
Clegane Bowl.
No, philosophy of human nature and
in the show.
Yeah, and our thoughts on feminism and.
But anyways, Clegane Bowl is something I don't believe is going to actually happen. I think it's going to be one of those things they're just going to tease and tease and tease.
In the show.
In the show. In the books, I definitely don't think it's happened because the Hound's arc is just so... George has crafted this beautiful ending to his character, and I think it would just take away from that entire story if you had the Hound in a mountain fight.
My dad was watching... I was watching the earlier part of the season, and all of a sudden, for no reason, the Hound started digging a grave in frozen dirt, which is impossible, by the way.
The grave digger of feudalism.
And my dad's like, "Why is he digging a grave? Why would he do that? He's supposed to be a hard ass. Why is he digging a grave for these randoms?"
Well, they were making a nod to the book because he's the grave digger on the Quiet Isle.
But for casual fans, that just kind of took him out of the show. It's like,
he's the grave digger of feudalism.
No, he's not. That's bullshit. He's not the grave digger of feudalism. Littlefinger's the grave digger of feudalism. Littlefinger's taken down the feudalism with Tyrion.
I don't know, Tyrion did propose democracy last episode.
Which proves, well, it does not prove, but this is strong evidence to my theory of how the whole series is going to end. And we'll probably hit on that.
And here's the thing. I mean, like I said, I don't know. Democracy is obviously probably preferable to,
feudalism,
but it has its own problems as well. And I don't know. I mean, like obviously, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what George's, government, what he thinks is the best type of government.
I think that was.
What does he, what does he actually think? So I don't know what if George would, because he is a bit of a communist. He's definitely a socialist, huge feminist. So would he be okay with his magnum opus ending in democracy? I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's one of the dumbest things I've heard you say. Feudalism in no way compares to democracy. Democracy is so much better.
No. I agree, but I'm saying, would George R. R. Martin want?
George knows that too. He's not a moron.
Well, yeah, no. I get that. So democracy is better than feudalism,
Yeah.
but would George want his story to end that way?
Ooh.
That's more so what I'm trying to poke at. Because I don't know. It's hard to say.
I think we'll talk about this another. We'll finish this conversation another time, but yeah.
So
let's get back to the
we
episode.
got Euron coming in, and like I said, to me, Euron steals the scene every scene he's in.
He does well. It's
Euron of House Hot Topic. I'm digging it. I really am. Because
That's chest hair.
Well, so actually, the big question I want to ask you is: do you think he cut out Yara's tongue? Because in the scene where he's dragging her through the street, she's not saying anything, and she's got like blood on her mouth.
No, the writers didn't write her any lines. That's why she didn't say anything.
Yeah, but that would be such a no one. I mean, all of our characters have escaped this season. The main ones that we like and care about, and the ones we wanted to see succeed, have escaped this season better off now than they were at the end of last season.
Let me think about that. Yeah, everything's pretty good and jolly except for the White Walkers.
Well, so I mean, I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my is Tormund and Beric, are they dead? I feel like characters like that. Their deaths are going to be something we actually see. So I don't think they're dead. I think that they were on that part of the wall. I think that didn't fall. But all of our characters are in better situations. Not necessarily within their own universe, but like where we want to see them at as fans. Like so, listen, we got Jon and Dany are together. Jon is he went from becoming king of the North to being quote unquote the rightful heir to the Seven Kingdoms.
Aegon Targaryen.
Yeah. Exactly. So Jon is in a better place. Daenerys is actually the only person that I would probably argue this is in a worse place now than she was last season. Now, she gained the support of the North and the Vale. She lost the support of Dorne and the Reach. She lost a dragon. She actually, there's this revelation that is, she's not. So there's a better claimant from the Targaryen line. So Daenerys is actually the only person I would say is in a worse spot than where she was before.
I bet you I could think of someone.
Sansa's in a better spot. Bran is in Winterfell, the three-eyed raven.
Yeah.
Tyrion is kind of really in more or less in the same position he was before. He's mended his relationship with his brother. Jaime is morally shaking or not morally, but he's like shaking the.
I think you're completely right.
Yeah.
Getting back to the best scene in the show's history, the Hound is carrying this motherfucking box. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the Hound. He's my favorite character. He is just every word that comes out of his mouth is beautiful. It's so intelligently written. It's so
You cunt.
That's actually the worst thing, probably the dumbest thing he's ever said. But
I like dick. Bad
What?
pussy. I like dick.
what?
The best lines of the show.
Oh yeah.
You need a bad. You
need the bad pussy.
But you need a bad pussy. And then Tormund saying, I like dick.
Oh yeah. So
Which is cool. I mean, if you like dick, it's on you. But I mean, still, it's funny. But the So the big thing I gotta say about this Dragonfly mini is like, so I'm not gonna really worry about it too
Wait,
much.
hold on. The thing just came out of the box. The box's lid was off, and it didn't climb out of the box until the box got knocked over.
So, and again, this might be too smart for the show, but we still don't quite know the way that the telepathy works for the Night King. I mean, we know that we got a glimpse that it seems that there's the Chitauri battle droid.
Wait, what is a Chitauri battle droid?
Okay, so Independence Day, Chitauri, blah blah blah. It's the screenwriters get out of jail free card when it comes to big armies. The Chitauri are from the Avengers. So by having the mothership or the entity that controls something die, the whole army dies. Hang on, I just want to pause real quick. Qyburn picking up the hand and being amazed by it is one of the coolest little details they had here, because somebody that would be fascinated by that.
I think
would
that was
be Qyburn.
Qyburn's actor that was completely behind that.
Yeah, that was good. I love that.
He would not have given that hand up to John. No, he would have taken that back
Oh
to
yeah.
his laboratory.
Is there greater ram? Look at it. I mean, he is saying, because Qyburn's all about the nature of life and death. Being in between.
Yeah.
What is the surgery? Is it blah blah blah. But it's just I thought that was cool. But I was saying, so the Chitauri or the Independence Day. So it's this screenwriters get out of jail free card where the army dies if you kill the mothership or the entity that's controlling them. Which in theory for an army is a terrible idea. So just imagine if the United States Army worked that way, where if you just killed the president,
if Donald Trump got a heart attack,
the whole army would die. It's just not a good. I mean, so it's a get out of jail free card for the writers. However, the other implications of that is, can the Night King see? Is it a hive mind? Can he see everything? Does he get the collective experiences of his entire army? So can he see what's going on down here?
Why not? Why not? If he's controlling their minds. Well, actually, no, he's not controlling their minds. He's controlling their bodies.
Exactly. So my point is, but either way, to be able to control the bodies. So obviously, this white moves without being in sight of the Night King or whatever other Rose
Force that's
yeah,
controlling.
exactly. So he's able to. So it's moving without seeing him. So therefore, can he see through its eyes? So does he gain the collective experiences of all of the whites?
I don't know.
So can
I don't
he
know.
see that
You'd
there's...
probably have to read George's other books and let me know.
But I mean, there's in the Corpse Handler series, they can see everything that's going on. And that's how people manipulate. And the Corpse Handler series, for people who haven't read The Thousand Worlds, is about a planet where planets, I guess, where people can animate dead bodies using cybernetics and telepathic control.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's more or less kind of a precursor to the whites, it seems. So in that way they can. So the Night King now knows that there's unrest between the factions down south, which I'm sure he has in his own society. I mean, if the others are actually a society in which, like the humans, where there's politics and art and things like that, then they're going to have the same problems that the human society. They're not going to be all united under one thing. They're going to have different factions and loyalties and motivations as well.
You could be right in the books. None of that shit's happening in the show. They are one giant hive mind going to
That's
attack.
because I think that they represent something different in the show than they do the books. I believe they represent global warming, and I think it's
Climate change.
Global warming. I think that all of the politicians and the merchants and everybody down south is all bickering over something that really doesn't matter, and the real threat that we all need to unite together to stop is global warming and what the cause of that is.
The funny thing is, do you know what really accelerated global warming? It's the Industrial Revolution, which hasn't happened in Westeros, which means the ice zombies aren't coming.
Well, that's why it's representative of. It's not a literal.
Yeah.
It's not literal.
So how awesome was that scene when Euron walks up to the zombie?
I loved it. Loved it.
He walks up to the zombie and says, "Do these things swim?" "No."
Oh.
"Well, I'm out of here."
Yeah. I've been around the world, and I've seen only one thing. I've seen some truly terrifying things, or I've seen some truly crazy things. And the only thing that actually terrifies me is this shit. See you guys. I'm going back to my island. Yeah, I loved it. Euron, I think, is great. I mean, Euron, I think, is one of the greatest things this season. The Darth Vader is I think, one of the worst.
Yeah, he showed up. I didn't really understand that.
I don't understand why Darth Vader's here. I mean, Anakin's not you
I
know.
don't know. They've done crossovers between shows before. I just don't understand.
It's not one I understand.
Show.
I don't understand why, when he's running the Galactic Empire, he has enough time to come stand behind Cersei, or why the Emperor would.
And what happened to the Mountain?
Yeah.
Wasn't he doing that?
Yeah.
Why did?
He must be over at the Empire.
Oh, he might. It's me a little crossover.
I mean, it's one of those fan service things. They had to bring Darth Vader over so that they could have lightsabers at the Clegane Bowl.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
No. No. That's not okay.
So why doesn't Daenerys wear a crown?
She has it on her shoulder. She has this little three-headed dragon thing that she usually wears on her head in the books.
Okay, and then the other thing that kind of was... So, and this is a trope that the show has been kind of... I don't know if it's a trope or if it's a... if it's something that the show's just been doing, is these meetings, these big meetings in front of everybody where characters don't consult themselves...
Hey, this was my idea.
Beforehand. Like, so why wouldn't Jon and Dany and Tyrion, well, really the entire faction of the North, the Mountains and the Moon, the, Targaryens, why wouldn't they come in with the defined plan, like how they're going to handle this? Like, Cersei's going to say, well, I want the King of the North to bend the knee to me if I'm going to help him out. And then, why wouldn't they be like, okay, when this happens, Jon, lie.
Yeah. This kind of goes back to the first episode or second this season. Jon and Sansa are talking to a room full of Northmen.
Right.
And they have their... they're discussing what they're going to do. And as soon as it happened, some drama occurred in the room. And this is a very basic leadership skill. You make a plan before you go into the room. You talk about it amongst yourselves and you present a unified front, even if you disagree, right? So someone in the president's cabinet may disagree with what the president's doing. Like Colin Powell may say, George Bush, I don't like what you're doing. However, you tell him that behind closed doors.
Yes.
And then in the public, Colin Powell says, we are handling the war the best we can. We are following the plan. Bring confidence to your subjects. That you know what the hell you're doing.
Even in little things, like if you're at work, you have a pre-meeting before you go meet with a client.
Oh, yeah.
So everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
They
did that this whole season.
It's I don't know. It's because they don't need to have two scenes then. They don't need to have the small meeting and then the big, and then the big meeting, George can do that in the book. But in the show, you
can write around that. You can make it dramatic. It's just.
Anywho, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that we're just gonna have to look. I mean, if that's your biggest complaint in a show, I'd say that's a small complaint. However, there's just other things that are just too.
Yeah. So at this point in the story, Tyrion decides to walk alone into Cersei's chambers and convince her of something. And Cersei came up with a conspiracy during this time to betray everyone. Right? Great job, Tyrion, for convincing her of that.
I just don't see what Tyrion, why he thinks this will help him.
Did this scene advance the plot? I don't think it did. They could have just not had this
But
scene.
I mean, they
It was a
wanted
good
to
scene.
they wanted to have the Dink and Lena Headey. They wanted to have, because let's be honest, one of the best things about season 2 was the interaction between Cersei and Tyrion, and their back and forth. It was very.
They're absolute complete opposites. At least in the show, he's extremely logical and focused on his objective, and she's hysterical and paranoid. And those two together just creates good television.
So that's what they wanted to do. It's what the writer like, and I think, and to me, this is my theory on how the show is going. Rather than thinking about an overall logical story arc, okay, and then they think about an ultimate like I said, an arc. They're thinking about, I want to have this happen. I want to have a chase scene in Bravos for Arya.
Yeah.
They don't have a rhyme or a reason behind it. They just want to have a chase scene. So what they do is they shoehorn the plot so that the chase scene happens. They want to have a meeting between only Peter Dinklage and Lena Headey. So they shoehorn a plot so that it happens. They want to have this. They want to have a scene where Daenerys can come in and save Jon Snow, and so they can make a white dragon. So they shoehorn a plot so that it fits. Rather than thinking about a logical story arc, they think about things they want to include and make the story fit it. Rather than having a story and then having your actions fit the story.
You're completely correct. I do think that's where they're going. In addition, tell us about the. George gave certain plot points allegedly to the people in the show,
but we don't know how much he gave. We know that there were and again, I don't know where I read this at or where this comes from, but I think he gave them 4 major oh shit moments, oh shit, and I think one of them was hold the door. The other one is John's true parentage, and I don't know the other 2. I know that there were a couple things that he did tell them. So there's that. So they've got to include those moments into the story, and then I don't know how much else he told them. Did he tell them that there will be an ice dragon? Did he say there's going to be an ice dragon? How much did he tell them about the ice dragon?
They could have got that from the internet. People have been talking about it.
Well, that's the thing. I think they do read forums.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They watch all these reviews. Maybe they'll listen to this one.
Probably not. I don't think anyone listens to this one, to be honest.
Yeah, no one's listening.
So I don't know how much they told them, but I think they're just trying to make things fit that they want to see happen rather than make the things that are happening fit with, the story.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this when I went down to go see the eclipse. I got back and I was thinking about, could I write, I've thought of a couple scenes on how I would just make them way better, way more interesting. And I'm wondering,
you know why that is?
What?
Because it's I can sit here and you and I let's be honest, we're critics.
Yeah.
It's way easier to criticize and change a story than completely come up with something new.
Once half the ideas have been presented to you.
Exactly. So I can sit here. You and I could sit here all day, and we could say, "Well, hang on a minute. Let's do it this way, or let's rewrite and change these things." That doesn't bring anything to the table. I mean, it's discussion. It's fun. It's what ifs. But the bottom line is, they are, and I will defend them here. They are creating something from nothing, and even more so from nothing now that they don't have the source material to work with. I mean, but that's why I say it's easier for us to say
Yeah. Here's my attack. This is right. These are the basics of writing. So what you do when you're writing a script for a movie is you write down your main plot, which is what we got right here. Then you give it to an editor, to a team of editors who read it 5 times a piece. And they come back and they say, your story's shit, you missed all these things. And then you know a little bit more about your plot. You rewrite it, you consult someone good, you consult other people, you hash out all the details, and you go through this editing process for a good amount of time, and you think about it hard. And that's basics for screenwriting. If you just go to a coherent story like Breaking Bad, they hashed out the details Every single character, their motivations made sense beginning to end because they had a fantastic team of writers. What they needed is they needed a couple of critics, not someone way better than us because we're not writers, we don't do this sort of thing.
No,
But
we're just
someone,
assholes.
yeah, oh yeah, but you need an asshole. You need someone who's going to look you in the eye and say, "This sucks." Even if, and in the discussion, you should always have someone there to specifically dislike what you say and make you think about how it could be better.
That's why you and I play off each other so well.
Yeah. It's like you don't have. It's like Abe Lincoln's cabinet. Did you know about Abe Lincoln's cabinet?
I'm sure I'm about to learn a lot more about it.
Okay, well, I won't go too far on a tangent, but basically, Abe Lincoln filled his cabinet. He did not want yes men. He did not want people who were just going to say, yes, sir. He wanted at least a handful of people that would say, no, you're wrong. And when one person, if you're in a cabinet meeting, and one person says, no, you're wrong, then it's so much easier for someone who's a little bit timid, someone who's not as confident, to bring forward their negative criticism as well. And you need that in a writing room, and I don't think they had that in this season. I think they had a bunch of yes men, or they had a bunch of lazy men, or lazy women, whatever. I'm not sexist, I don't care.
You could just say people.
It doesn't flow off the tongue. English is a little bit, it's a tiny bit sexist language. But they needed that this season. And now we have a romantic scene going on where Danny picks up a dragon bone off the ground, which no scavenger has ever picked up.
The dragon bones are black.
Yeah. And like, I think they're supposed to be valuable, aren't they? Why is there one laying on the ground?
Yeah, you can make I think you can make bows out of them. I mean, you can make. Yeah, they're light. They're strong. Right? Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. Let's go into the romance between Jack and Diane we got going on here.
Jack and Diane.
Or Andy and April, or oh God,
Mr. and Mrs. Actor.
Was it you who showed me that the GIF?
Yeah, he's talking about a meme I showed him of
Finn.
These two actors are just, they don't really flow. And what we have right here is what actually works. We're looking at John and Danny kind of talking this little archway a little bit close. You've talked to ladies before, and you know when you're in that intimate zone, you're just a little bit closer than normal, and that tension's there. And the audience can feel it.
I don't feel it between them.
Yes. But what they needed is a few more scenes. I felt a little bit something there. And they needed a few more of those sprinkled throughout the season. I was talking about this with your brother. And their chemistry does not flow well. When anyone who's ever talked to a girl or seen... There's a little-known movie which I think has the greatest love scene ever caught on film. It's a little thing called The Empire Strikes Back. It's essentially a love story.
You mean the part where Luke Skywalker kisses his sister?
No, that was a little gross out for the second time watchers.
Well, it wasn't.
And it established sexual tension. But yes, that's one little scene. That scene there established sexual tension between Han and Leia. She says, "I can find a better man like this one. I don't really like you. You're a scoundrel." And she kisses that guy. Not
Nerf herder.
Yes, but there's a little scene in there where, she's fixing something, and she likes him, but she doesn't want to say it because she's a bitch, and she is. She's a bitchy woman, and she's wonderful. One of my favorite characters ever. And Han comes in, and he's like, "I'm a scoundrel. I'm a playboy. You're trembling. Why are your hands trembling?" "I'm not trembling." And then he gets in close, and she likes it. She knows maybe she shouldn't, but she does it anyway. And, when my girlfriend watched that scene, she, squealed. She's like, "Oh my God, they actually did it." Well, people were squealing in this one.
I don't know.
Those scenes where a man and woman, they're talking back and forth, and that sexual chemistry was just not there. I don't know how else to say it. What are your thoughts?
Which is fine if two people don't have chemistry together. But if the plot demands it, you've got to do some things that, like,
hey, John, try a joke. You're not good at all. But you okay? How about this scene? All right. John sees a pretty lady, right, and his hormones start going because he's a young man, and she's pretty, and maybe he can get an alliance out of this. And so he tells a joke, and it doesn't go well, and then she's like, "What are you doing? Why'd you tell that joke?" And then he blushes, and then he moves to the corner, and he like runs away like a scared little boy.
Or just
and
make
then
it
she
alliance
says, "You're
thing.
a coward," and then he blushes behind her back, and then she smiles, and then they cut to the next scene. Something like that, where you kind of feel what each character's feeling. Oh, maybe this person's funny. Oh, he likes me. Hee, that's funny. I'm still a little girl, even though she's an older woman, but she's supposed to be kind of a little girl.
She's 30. But then it leads to boat sex.
How did you know that was going to happen? How did you know? You guessed that. How did you know they were going to have sex on a boat? You knew. You read something.
Boat sex.
How?
I know everything about the series.
Oh, I should have brought that piece of paper. At the beginning of this season, you wrote down a bunch of...
And boat sex was one of them.
Was it really?
Yep.
How did you... That was a fucking rumor that you heard on the internet. It's too specific to be true. My predictions had been essentially correct. I predicted almost everything to happen this episode, more or less. I got a good 60%.
I did predict everything that happened this episode.
You did not.
I predicted boat sex.
Shit.
I predicted the wall coming down.
Yeah.
I predicted Littlefinger dying.
No.
I even predicted the fact that this episode it was going to be the lone wolf dies and the pack survives.
You read fucking parts of the script.
Yeah, I can read the internet. That's what it is.
Yeah, I don't read the... I try to come up with these myself because if anyone does stumble across this podcast, they probably would have watched other people's podcast, and maybe if I give them my own opinions instead of just...
Okay, so you want to talk about our own opinions now. This is something that you and I have kind of bounced off each other from time to time and I think it's a great thing to talk about now because Littlefinger just died.
Oh, okay, let's talk about that.
I didn't like it. I didn't like that Littlefinger died, mainly because we didn't... I mean, I don't buy that his motivation was solely he wants the Iron Throne with Sansa at his side.
Did they establish that? I
think they did that. He named his motives was that he wants the Iron Throne with Sansa at his side. However...
He did say he loves her at the end of this.
And that's the thing. I don't know... It's unrewarding because obviously D&D did not get from George R.R. Martin what the Littlefinger's ultimate end goal was, so they kind of got left on their own to figure it out for themselves. And I mean, even in the book, we don't know what Littlefinger's ultimate end goal is.
Do you want to talk about that? What is?
Yeah, and so I think that Littlefinger represents capitalism.
And this is an idea that Matt took from me.
I did.
And he was not convinced. But I laid out a good argument. And did you read that part that Tyrion said? Did you reread that?
Which one? Where he talks about...
There's a little scene where Tyrion, he's thinking about, do I trust Littlefinger or something like that. Well, and then he says, Littlefinger is doing something weird with the money. The profits have increased tenfold. You know, he's firing certain people, he's hiring others, he's buying cotton and wood and all these materials and shipping them around. It looks like he's introducing capitalism, stocks and bonds and trading and devaluing currencies.
Well, see, I think that he represents the fact that, like, he's introducing a type of capitalism, but at the same time, I do think on the other side, he was purposely bankrupting the crown. And the reason why I was hesitant at first to just say, like, oh, okay, yeah, he definitely represents capitalism, is that Littlefinger is kind of a classic George R.R. Martin manipulator.
Yeah.
And George R.R. Martin sees himself as the great chess player, so Littlefinger is a chess player. I mean, that's what, in a sense, the Game of Thrones
capitalism is manipulating the people. Maybe it's a little bit too deep.
Well, I it might be a little too deep, but I'm saying that like I don't think that. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, would George R. R. Martin have a capitalist be a manipulator? It's a very George R. R. Martin thing to do, I guess.
Yeah, I have to read more about it. In my opinion, at least, I think capitalism would be the great liberator. Feudalism is this evil system of oppression that exists, and here comes this guy who you hate. This is Littlefinger. He murders, he kills, he schemes. But my oh my, this dude is good. In the real world, he would be Steve Jobs. He would be some big, economist, capitalist guy, making the world a better place, despite the fact that he's a selfish asshole. And my thought would be that Littlefinger, despite our hatred of him, ends up being a noble, good player. Well, no, he's not a noble, good player person, but he makes the world a better place by accident. An evil person making the world a better place. It's poetic, I think.
See, but in George R. R. Martin's eyes, that wouldn't be better. Because you got
freeing people from feudalism, letting them make their own businesses instead of
Marx
state-owned.
said that we went from a slave society to a feudal society to a capitalist society. So this is George R. R. Martin including the next progression in Marx's work and in his own work. So from George's perspective, and again, like I said, I got my degree in economics, so I like a certain amount of capitalism. Okay. However, in George's eye, in George's mind, that's all Littlefinger is doing is helping bring about the next step that we've gone through in our society. So, that being said, yeah, he might be representing capitalism.
So, might he bring about the Industrial Revolution?
I don't think the Industrial Revolution is going to be able to happen. Because, okay, so...
That would be so cool.
As much as George R. R. Martin likes to criticize Lord of the Rings, okay? Lord of the Rings is... The story of Lord of the Rings is the decline of magic, okay, and the rise of technology.
It's so fucking awesome.
Which is great. I mean, but the... and you could go into that all day, but in a sense, it's the decline of all things great and magical, and the rise of man and technology and things like that. So George, like most fantasy writers, I think is still, for whatever reason, there's been 8,000 plus years of more or less stagnant technological, and I mean there's magic that exists.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Well, actually, it's not weird.
Well, look, they're in the Iron Age for longer than our society was.
Well, okay, here's why I say it's not weird. I recently finished a book called Why Nations Fail, and I'm going to pin this down in about a minute. The primary reason why nations succeed and why some fail is that some nations have exploitative institutions that take money from people, from private business, from tax revenue and all that, and other ones have inclusive institutions which bring people up. You can easily get a loan to go to college and whatnot. And every time there's been an inclusive institution, people have prospered. This would be the Roman Empire, the Roman Republic, before it turned into extractive institutions when the Roman Empire came. 14th century Venice, which was inclusive and had massive growth until it became extractive and had to decline. And, America, which we're currently in an inclusive, and the West in general, which have become inclusive. If there was no society that created inclusive institutions, there would be essentially no growth. Because growth only occurs in societies where there is. It can occur, but it's very, very slow. The growth inside the Soviet Union was so slow compared to the USA because one was extractive and America was inclusive. It gave everybody a chance to meet their potential, more or less. And so I could see that happening. Now, George hasn't read that book because that book's newer than his series is.
So my thought is that, like, are we seeing people try to, because I mean, like I said, I don't know how I feel feel about the whole post-apocalyptic Game of Thrones. Like, I think it's definitely
It's so true.
post-apocalyptic.
It's so true.
Is it technologically post-apocalyptic? I don't know. I mean, is it magically? So, are we seeing the decline of magic now? Is that what we're seeing? So now we can.
I'd have to think about this, and maybe we'll do our
Like Lord of the Rings. Are we seeing the decline of magic?
We'll do our big predictions. We'll make a single episode for that. Let's wrap up. We're reaching the 35-minute mark or something.
Yeah, so we'll wrap up on this one. I guess let's just kind of finish up with our final thoughts here on the episode.
Little finger in the wall is what we got left.
Yeah, so I didn't like the way they killed off Littlefinger. I think that it was lazy.
Littlefinger's big. There should have been a revelation. We should have realized what Littlefinger. We should have been given a hint to what Littlefinger's plan was.
And then that would have been George R. R. Martin if he had this grand plan.
If he said, "No, Sansa, don't kill me. The prophecy says," and then someone slices his throat, and then you have to comb through the show to find out, to read his notes and whatnot on what he thinks the prophecy is that he's got to solve, or whatever his weird motivation is.
Yeah.
He's got debts to pay, or
exactly. So I mean,
the secret trade route to America. I've been what something that turns his story on its head.
Exactly, and then he dies and never realizes that. That would have been good TV, but I just think it was lazy because they didn't know what to do with him, and I mean he was such a great character for the first couple seasons, and
yeah, it was disappointing.
I didn't like it. I mean, yeah, and the Stark sisters working together. My main complaint here is, okay, I'll buy that they work together because that's what you would do. I mean, let's be honest, that's what you would do. However, I don't buy that they needed to have these private moments where they're fighting against. That's just an FU to the audience. They're just trying to trick the audience. They're not tricking Littlefinger when they're behind closed doors arguing. They're just tricking the audience, and it's not good.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good when the audience is
the only one
when you
tricked.
Feel you're being manipulated.
Yeah, just to try to have some.
If you're going to manipulate the audience, you have to do it so well that almost no one in the audience realizes they're being.
Yeah, that's my point. Though they did all these things that just they made you think and even in that last scene though they bring Arya in, just to, it was to fool the audience, not Littlefinger, and that's the problem I had with it.
We just finished a excellent scene where we learn the value of leadership. Now, Theon, how did that scene go? We just watched it.
Where he gets kicked in his knot.
Theon says to these dudes, there's these tough dudes who for some reason don't want to listen to him, even though they've been listening to him for a while. Mm-hmm. They all of a sudden say, "No, fuck you, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you." And then Theon realizes that in order to run his men, he has to violently murder this dude. And luckily, through his people realize he's a real trooper, and then they put salt in his wounds. Literally, he goes to the ocean.
The Ironborn baptized himself by salt water.
Fucking painful.
Anyways,
that annoyed me. Final thing
we got to talk about is the wall. I mean, that's the big thing this episode. I mean, boat sex. Yeah, that was John and his revelation that absolutely pissed me off. That they had this annulment. I mean, I think we ought to do.
It's a technicality.
I think we ought to do an entire episode on Jon Snow and Jon Snow's parentage and the bigger things about that.
I don't know if I'm good enough to do that.
Well, I mean, we can talk about it.
I can argue. My argument's generally an argument from authority.
So we'll do a bit. My main thoughts on that is I didn't like it, mainly because the thing I liked about Jon is that he was a bastard, and they took that away from him. But the wall coming down, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I saw it coming from a mile away. I saw it coming from season 2, when I realized it's a Chekhov's gun. If anybody doesn't know what a Chekhov's gun is a story writing technique where it's some Russian thing where when a guy walks into the story and he walks into a room in the beginning of a Russian story, and he sees this gun on the wall, right? And the Chekhov's gun basically says, if you're putting that gun on the wall, as a writer, that gun must not be on the wall at some point at the end of the film. Someone's got to use that gun. And it just basically says, don't put extra shit into your story if it's not going to change. Now, you can have this big old threat, ooh, the White Walkers are coming and we got to stop them.
Moving 5 centimeters
Yeah,
a
move
day.
5 centimeters a day. But you can have this threat without a wall. If there's a wall there, by the end of the story, that wall has to come down. And so I knew that from the beginning.
See, in the book, though, I do like, I think it was Preston Jacobs even said it, that George R. R. Martin's leaving this Chekhov's gun on the wall that's such a blaring Chekhov's gun that he's going to just say, oh, we're just going to go underneath it.
He might. It could be a red herring.
Yeah.
And that's the only time where a Chekhov's gun doesn't occur. A red herring, for anyone who doesn't know, is a smelly old fish. When the hound dogs are chasing you after you stole the diamond or whatever, you drag this smelly old fish across the road and you backtrack, and the dogs will go right after the fish and you'll escape down the river. The wall could be a red herring, although that'll be the biggest motherfucking red herring in the history of
Ooh, the fictional,
ever. A history of
literature.
fiction. I don't know. It's yeah, that'd be just absolutely crazy. I don't know what's keeping them from going around it. They could build a boat. You can just freeze the water around the wall. Why can't you do that?
Because we can get into this later. I think the others actually built the wall.
Okay.
I think that the wall is actually like
yes.
a demilitarized zone, like North Korea, South Korea.
Okay, here's my thoughts on this. Yes, it makes sense that the stone castles are built by the humans and the giant ice wall is built by the giant ice zombies. It makes sense. It's clear, if there's a treaty at some point, you don't go north of here, and we won't go south of there, and we'll large walls build good neighbors. And then humans failed, and that's why they're invading and whatnot. On the other hand, the idea is so fucking cool. The idea that the Night's Watch has been around. They built these castles to stop them from coming. And then the First Lord Commander said, holy shit, dealing with them was so annoying last time. Every single Lord Commander must make this wall a few feet higher every single year. And then over the course of 8,000 years, this thing just gets unbelievably tall. And they're just constantly, we can't let them come back. Gotta build another foot. Gotta build another foot. Until they forget about the threat. Mm-hmm. And then here it comes. I like that idea so much. It's so fun. You're probably right. And this is generally our arguments. You're usually right on Game of Thrones. But I think it's cooler a lot of times when you're wrong.
So I don't know. We'll see how that goes in the book. As
Wall
in the show, the wall fell, and it was CGI was cool.
It was so awesome.
Yeah,
it was so fucking cool when that dragon came and.
Is it fiery spewing or is it ice?
It's blue fire, man. Ice doesn't knock down ice walls.
Maybe it's like a negative number. It's two negatives cancel out, make a
positive. It's fucking CGI wonders. That thing breathed so much fire. It was insane.
But anyways, I think it's a good wrap.
I think that's everything.
We will
overall decent episode.
Decent. I mean, good things, bad things. I mean, like I said, it's what we've kind of come to expect from the show nowadays. So
better luck next season.
We'll see how things go. We'll be back probably either with a more of a one-off discussion. I think next one we'll do some more.
Yeah, we'll probably do a season review.
And then we'll probably do a season review. We missed out on a lot of the episodes this season, but
we can go back on.
We can go back. We'll touch on them. All right.
That's everything. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right. Have a good one.